Justice Luiz Antônio Barroso, president of Brazil's Supreme Court, recently signed an agreement with major tech companies to combat fake news and online disinformation. Appointed to the Supreme Court in 2013, Barroso, a former lawyer and respected legal scholar, has expressed deep concerns on this issue and the matter increasingly appearing in Brazilian courts at all levels. CGTN spoke with him about his latest book, Artificial Intelligence, Digital Platforms and Democracy.
The technological revolution changed a lot of things. In one hand, it democratized access to knowledge, to information, and to the public sphere. And that's the good side of it. However, the traditional media kind of lost part of the role it has always played, which is exercising a certain editorial control, and this is something that was lost with the digital platform. The digital platforms allowed the circulation of misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, conspiracy theories, and that's been harmful to democracies in different parts of the world.
Minister, I know scholars and justices don't like simple yes and no answers because reality is complex, but anyway, taking everything into account, do you think democracy is better off or worse off with the digital platforms and artificial intelligence?
It's very difficult to answer in a yes or no proposition, because there have been positive things. The internet broadened the communication, between people from all parts of the world, and that's a very positive side. However, there have been threats to democracy. I can tell you from my experience here in Brazil, it has unfortunately released many demons, and in that sense I think the impact was quite negative.
And Minister, I know that you have to be very careful talking about any concrete cases, but I'll bring one of them for us to talk in principle. We had in São Paulo one candidate in municipal elections that has released a very damaging report against another candidate, against an opponent, that in just a couple of hours it was clear that it was fake news. He was told to retract, there was a right to answer, but we know that this kind of correction travels much slower than a juicy slander. From a legislative point of view, is there anything that can be done to deal with this?
Well, the big problem with the digital platforms is that the circulation of lies or disinformation or misinformation is immediate. And there's no way you can stop it in time before it makes the damage that it's going to make. I cannot think of a remedy for that except a harsh punishment for this improper behavior. But the damage was done.
It goes too fast, doesn't it, Minister? I mean, even in terms of thinking of legislation, because when we start, for example, voting a bill related to this in the Parliament, until all the time goes for it to be passed, sometimes it's even outdated already.
Well, that's one problem we're facing when we try to regulate new technologies. The speed of the transformation. In Europe, they were able to pass legislation regarding digital platforms and regarding artificial intelligence. In the US, they have not been able to do that yet. They might not even be willing to do it. In Brazil, there's legislation both for digital platforms and artificial intelligence in Congress. There are bills in Congress, but so far they haven't made much progress.
Is that clear for you as a scholar and expert, president of the Supreme Court, author of this book? What is this boundary between the freedom of expression and controlling abusive speech?
I think there are some positive certainties of what's wrong, and negative certainties. But there is a huge gray area in which we, in many cases, must have courts deciding whether there is liability or not. But one thing that I truly believe is in media education. I think we need to educate people to deal with the new technologies and learn not to pass on lies or misinformation and disinformation. But we need to educate people to do that, to push this kind of behavior to the margin of history. And certainly we must make lying wrong again.
I'd like to ask about your experience in China. You have been there recently to talk about this book and this issue to hundreds of Chinese judges. Could you tell us a little bit what was this experience like?
Well, first of all, it was a great experience personally. People were very, very nice, and they gave me a great reception. And I like to say if they wanted to impress me, they did. I was very impressed with what I saw in terms of economic development, of social development. I met with the president of the Supreme Court, the People's Supreme Court, with the vice president of the National Assembly. I met with judges in Shanghai. I went to the School of Judges I think that was in Beijing also. It was great interaction. I attended a AI conference that was going on there. Most lawsuits in Brazil are digitalized at this point. We don't have paper anymore. So I had this experience in China, online courts, a lot of digitalization, and the perception that they are investing money, time, energy, and the best minds in bringing progress in this area of artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much, Minister.
It was my pleasure, Paulo.
Thank you.
All the best for you.